Can we go to the park, Dad? Can we go to the park, Dad? And every day I was like, no, I can't. Can't bring you. Sorry. My wife is like, no, sweetie, he can't bring you. And one day she didn't ask me.
Welcome to the Skilled Dad Podcast. This is the podcast for dads of all seasons to learn the things that they can do and engage so that they can go and equip the next generation for success. Here we sit down with everyday dads just like you to learn from their story, get inspired, and then start getting after it. So we invite you to join in, see what you can take away from this story, and apply to your life on your journey to becoming the Skilled Dad.
Snip, snip. Oh,
Hey guys, and welcome to the Skilled Dad Podcast. My name's Zach Reeser. I'm your host. And on this episode, sometimes you have the opportunity to meet somebody that becomes what I'll call a fast friend. And this was an unexpected find, but we've just, for context, spent the last probably 40 minutes just having a grand old time and realized we should probably hit the record button at some point. So I've got Mr. Cameron Cushman on here today. Cameron, how are you, sir?
hey, I'm doing pretty good. I just remembered, you were talking about starting the podcast funny, and when you said 45 minutes, I just remembered that we had ordered pizza for dinner. My wife wanted to do a quick dinner tonight, and the pizza arrived about over an hour ago now. It arrived at 6:45. Okay, they were missing my pizza, which is the case every time.
They were missing your pizza.
My pizza just wasn't there, and so I was like, "Hey, sir," I ran back out because I didn't realize how many boxes Allison had grabbed. I was like, "Sir, you're missing my pizza," and he's like, "All right, I'll be back." Well, it's been about an hour and 30 minutes, and there's no pizza.
There's no
So
pizza.
it was just fine, stomach issues. I can go without food. So, but I was kind of looking forward to it.
Well, you better call that guy. Is this the same driver that
It
like every time you order pizza is the same?
No,
Is it the
it's
same person?
always different driver every time. So I don't do who like in this situation is who's to blame, Like, and I'm not terribly upset, but is it the driver's fault? Is it, did the people did they forget to make the pizza?
I think you have really good taste in pizza, and when your address comes up for delivery, they're like,
They eat it.
whoever is driving that night is like, yes,
Yeah.
I'm eating Cameron's pizza.
I'll say I like to say I've got good taste in pizza, but tonight was Domino's, so pretty simple. So I don't is that good pizza? Some may argue it. I don't know. I can't do cheese, so I always get light cheese, and everyone orders extra cheese besides me in this house. But
Well, 2 for $5.99 can't be beat. Domino's is a staple in this house. You go thin crust. We like the pizza pizza. Yeah, pizza. So I'm with you. It's good. So
there we go.
everyone is now hungry. Also, we are not sponsored by Domino's.
Yeah.
But I do want one now, and apparently so does Cameron because his didn't show up.
Hey, it is what it is.
So thanks for
Yeah, what
spending dinner with
you
me.
don't throw a fit.
I'm gonna be ordering you a pizza now. After this, we're gonna figure that one out. But I touched on this at the beginning, but I actually connected with Cameron on the social media. He posted something on LinkedIn about one of his first hunts, and along with that, there was this epic story. So if you go and check Cameron out, we'll send information at the end of this. He just had an awesome story about it, and also talked about kind of some of the reasons I enjoy being outdoors, what it brings me. So I shot him a note and said, "Hey, congrats! It's your first one," and we connected on that. And then, you know, I didn't stalk you, but I looked you up.
No, totally cool.
Is that okay?
No, it's I've it you got like this little leeway because my profile says visual creator, or filmmaker. And so
Mhm.
that means you have to look them up.
Exactly. I was reeled in by curiosity, and so I did, and it pulled up his website, CameronCush.com, right?
Easy.
Easy. CameronCush.com. And there's this video at the front end, and it's called Finding Peace. And I played it, and he's doing some really cool stuff to help other men. And I'll let you get into your story, but I will share, like, Cameron's a vet, um, uh, uh, served in our military, and he's out there helping other men. And after I saw that and I saw some other parts of the story, I was like, man, I want to talk to this guy. So we connected for a 15-minute call that turned into like an hour and 15 minutes, talked about all sorts of things that still scare me. Dad related.
We're gonna talk about any of that on this?
I don't know, man. We'll see where it goes.
All right.
But I asked Cameron, I was like, man, would you be open to joining me on the Skill Dad podcast? And here we are. Still waiting on pizza, but we're ready to get after it. So,
Yeah. Still waiting on that pizza. And LinkedIn deleted that post. So
did they really?
they did. And actually, so the
Hmm.
somebody reported it. I know who reported it. Um, and I actually reported their comment on my post because I could still look at the post even though LinkedIn had flagged it. They had cussed me out pretty good about my post, the person did, and so
Hmm.
I reported their comment for, because I feel like my story was beautifully written, it was a nice experience, I didn't there was no inappropriate anything, and, their comment was definitely on the other end of that, but they said that their comment didn't go against their standards, but my post did, so,
Mm.
is what it is.
I'm gonna withhold some comment on that, but I'm glad that I got to see your well-written story.
I appreciate it. It's on Facebook too and Instagram, so
Still, you didn't get
yep, hasn't been flagged on those yet. And Go Wild. Go Wild's a new social media platform for outdoors people that there's no type of shadow banning and there's no type of deleting comments or posts. So, I posted it on there. So, interesting app.
um, yeah, it's just a little bit crazy on what is considered okay and what's not these days. But that's one of the cool challenges that we have as dads to help navigate and figure out and get some good guys beside us to figure that out together because
Yeah.
we got some work to do. But hey, man, if you're open to it, I mentioned you were a vet. You're a dad of four,
Data 4.
and you talked about I'm going to call it visual experience maker,
Yeah,
but you
visual.
could
I got like 18 titles, I guess. My official title of my current full-time job is visual content producer. I'm not the biggest fan of that word, of that term, because it's become like a very popular term used on YouTube.
hmm,
And I call myself a cinematographer or a filmmaker for the most part, just because the stories that I'm telling have much more emotion, than, a lot of the stuff that's out there. And even through my visuals, you can feel the emotion through kind of my filming style. So I go, when I introduce myself, I say, hi, I'm Cameron and I'm a filmmaker.
yeah, I like that. That's simple, easy to understand. But what the stuff that you've been making, and this is some of what you do, but the stuff that you make is really cool storytelling. You're really good at what you do. So well done.
Thank you.
So go check them out. CameronCush.com, and we'll get to the handles at the end of it, but we'll say it at the beginning because there's some really cool, pieces that he's doing, so,
Thank you.
alright, man. Tell us about yourself, and that's kind of free reign. We'll see where
Yeah.
where it takes us.
Yeah. So Cameron Cushman and Zach, thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I've got 4 kids, 3 boys and a girl. We've got 11, 8, 6, and 2.5 years old. And, I think every single, we've had each kid, like our first kid, Logan, our oldest, who I actually adopted from my wife's previous marriage. I love all of my children the same. I have to say that every time, or else somebody yells at me. But not my wife or anything, but there's always someone out there in the world that's like, "What a terrible dad." Um, but I love all my children the same. He has my last name. He is my son. But he didn't have a terrible 2. My daughter Savannah, my only daughter, I wouldn't say she had a terrible 2. She just had, uh, I'm gonna be a teenager at 3 years old. Um,
Yes. I'm with you right there.
yeah,
I'm with you.
Carson, my youngest middle. When you have 4 kids, you have 2 middles, oldest middle, youngest middle. I kinda determined that. So if you got 4 kids and you've been struggling, like, when you're trying to talk about a certain kid and you're like, "I got 4," I can't say the middle child, youngest and oldest middle. If you have twins, ugh, I don't know what to tell you. Um, but, yeah, Carson was the start of the terrible twos, and, I hate that term, but Grayson, my youngest now, who's 2.5, they actually probably wrote the definition for terrible twos on
Mhm.
him, so
He's just
He
got it tattooed, ready to
Oh,
go.
he is a handful. He's the coolest kid in the world, and, as a dad of 3 yourself, the more children you have, the smarter each one becomes because 'cause they're just learning from their siblings,
Yeah,
like and so they learn so much faster, and they're like little parrots. They just, you know,
yeah,
all this information comes in and they remember it, and but he's got some interesting habits. He likes to play with his hand in his butt. It's just his hand always goes from the butt, through the diaper into the butt, and there's been a few times when he's like, "Look, guys, my hands have poop on them," and we're like, "No!" And he's like, and then he runs, and his hand and he this is a kid that likes to rub his hand along the wall no matter
no.
what he's doing, and it's like and so our walls here, it's like this really weird matte paint, and, like, if you have even oily fingers and you touch the wall, it's there for life. It's not going anywhere. We're just gonna repaint the whole house.
So
But yeah,
you got some modern art going on your walls
first
there?
oh my gosh, there is like the other day I opened my closet door and the door felt like I can't even describe it, what it felt like. And I look at it and I was like, "What is this?" It was barbecue sauce. He had literally just like stuck his hand in barbecue sauce and just grabbed the doorknobs in the house. And this one just managed to like form these little it's like the movie Venom or Spider-Man, like, the little things are like little symbiote things are just growing out of the thing.
I'll take that over the alternative coming out
Yeah,
of the diaper.
I agree there. But no, I've got my beautiful wife, Allison, and, 4 kids. There won't be any more kids because I got snipped. It finally happened after years and years of protesting it, but it was kinda needed. My wife had some difficulties the last 2 pregnancies, and so with her body, and so I did that for her.
Yeah,
And
we that's the conversation I
that's
was
the
referring to
conversation.
that has scared me ever since we talked a few weeks
Yeah.
ago.
I don't know if that's even like the 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 popping sequence, if we're allowed to talk about that on a podcast, the weird part, but
Ah,
yeah, I don't know. We'll
I
leave it to
mean,
your imagination.
yeah, let's just talk we'll just say this and then continue some of your story, and if it happens to come back, for those listening, if you wanna talk about it and learn more about it, there's an opportunity. I just gonna need to get some feedback you wanna hear for now
For
because
sure.
I'm not quite in that camp, but I'm sure I will
We'll
be.
come back for podcast number 2, if
Yeah.
we need to.
Yeah, I think that's a good call because there might be like a forum.
Yeah.
We might get a group of us with
Yep.
different experiences because I have a buddy that had an interesting experience.
Oh, man.
I know you had an interesting experience, and I have some that were just like, "I'm just gonna watch March Madness.
Yeah.
It's great, best experience ever."
Yeah. I've heard numerous stories. I'm like literally like I've got buddies who were like running the next day. And then I had a guy that I served with who is on uses a cane for the rest of his life because some type of nerve damage. But hey, they say that's rare. But yeah, father, 4 kids, beautiful wife, currently living in Missouri. I'm from Florida originally. Yeah, creator. I moved out here when COVID kind of started, a little bit after COVID started. A lot of my freelance work kind of dipped out, lost a lot of that. I was producing a TV show for the Sportsman's Outdoor Channel, and kind of the outdoor industry didn't realize it was going to boom,
Mhm.
when COVID hit because everyone decided to get outside. So before that, all the sponsors backed out for the next year. So it was like, hey, we're going to have to nix it. And then I found myself out here, and now I film a lot of shooting sports stuff, so I get to go film people shoot miniguns, and then I get to shoot the minigun myself. 50 rounds a second for those wondering,
That's a
but,
lot,
it is a lot.
and you're going to cool places to do it too.
Yeah, and, it's kinda funny. Everyone always like, "Well, where are you guys getting ammo? There's an ammo shortage." And I hate to be the guy that always says this, but no, there is no ammo shortage. They just save the ammo for companies, big companies, and they slowly release it to increase the demand and increase the pricing, and I don't work for an ammo company. It's just, something I've learned within the industry, but, um,
They bought it
yeah.
bulk.
Yeah, so you had kinda talked briefly. I was 6 years in the Army, infantry, and, spent 4 years in Alaska. Technically, one of those years was spent in Afghanistan, and then I finished my contract in Texas. And so, as cliff notes as I can get it, while in Afghanistan, we got a bad batch of water that had been tainted with. We got really sick, super bad dysentery mid fighting season. For
Mm,
those non-military listeners, there is a fighting season. Wow, there is a fighting season in Afghanistan. I can't even say that anymore because we've pulled out of Afghanistan. So there was.
mm,
That's weird to say. So basically, like the warmer months is when the fighting season is, and then when it gets colder, they flee back to the surrounding countries with more amenities. And so got super sick. I mean, just really sick. Everyone's throwing up, crap in their pants. We're on patrol. It's 130 degrees, miserable. We're doing 19-hour patrol days,
mm.
and somehow a lot of those issues kind of stuck with me when I came back to the States. Went through a bunch of tests. They found I had some sliding hiatal hernias. Which most men develop. At least half of the listeners on this podcast do have or will develop a hiatal hernia. For those who don't know what it is, it's a small hernia, typically in your upper stomach, that kind of slides up and down into your lower esophagus. But very common. If you have acid reflux, you most likely have a hiatal hernia.
Hmm.
Little science lesson there.
Well, that's good to
Uh,
know because
Good to know
I don't have it yet, but now I'm gonna be watching for it.
for sure.
If that's if is it really 50%? That's the
Oh,
stat?
it's very high. It is very high. It may not be 50%, and now I gotta Google it, but it's definitely high.
Wow. I know you and I talked about that, but I've
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
Okay.
It's definitely high. 50%.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay, well, you heard it here. Um,
Yep. 50% for people older than 60. And so
okay.
younger people typically don't get them, but most older men develop it. So when you're 60 years old and you all of a sudden have reflux, you don't need to go run to the store to get Nexium, Protonix, whatever and those medications. If you eat an apple right before bed, it'll help your acid reflux. Interesting fact. I couldn't do that for my situation, but it's
Huh.
something I learned through talking to other people and gastroenterologists. Um, so yeah, they told me it really wouldn't affect anything. They couldn't figure out. I had some bleeding issues going on. Couldn't figure out where those were, but it's the army, so they're like, yeah, don't worry about it. Drink some water.
Oh,
Um,
jeez.
and that is truly what for my military listeners, you'll know this, that here's some Tylenol, drink water, and you'll be all right. Anyways, fast forward a few years, that was not the case. I ended up having two hernias, a hiatal hernia and a paraesophageal hernia, which is a very dangerous hernia to have and very rare. So not like its sibling, the hiatal hernia. This hernia actually is outside the stomach, but attached to your stomach lining. And basically, what that hernia does is it grabs the stomach and twists it, ultimately killing your stomach. Mine was caught before my stomach was dead. Even though fast forward to my surgeries, my stomach doesn't work now, but it's not dead, so I got
Huh.
that going for me, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, they tried me on a billion medications. I didn't respond to any of them. Actually, I had a lot of really negative reactions to one called Reglan, which is a very common medicine. I had severe eye spasms, which to this day I get about once a week, where my eye will just randomly twitch. And I had taken the medication for 3 days.
Really?
And it's a known side effect. It's one of the oldest, like, medications in the gastro world, but,
Mm.
it's no some people never will have eye spasms, and then somebody else could take one pill and just their eyes or it's very, it's an annoyance is what it is. It's
Yeah.
not, like, painful, it's just a big annoyance, and it obviously, like, you can't see when it's happening, but
Like,
yeah,
sometimes when I'm really tired, I'll get
yeah,
something like that. So
yeah,
I think I may not be the same, but it is annoyance. You
yeah,
think everyone can see it because it
it
feels like your eyes just flapping up and down?
yeah, it's literally so it's like I know the viewers can't or the listeners can't see us, but, it's, like, right under your eyebrow in that
Oh,
layer
the
of
top.
skin. Yeah, so it's, like, that's where it was for me, and that's where I've heard it is for others, so it's,
Wow.
like, this super annoyance, but
Okay.
fast forward, man, it's crazy how long my cliff notes are for this thing.
That's a
Um,
You're doing great, man. I mean, I know the story. It's a great story,
yeah.
and that's a I mean, we're gonna get into that, but that's an experience. So no, keep going.
Yeah. So fast forward to uh, every gastroenterologist trying to figure out what was going on, trying to see why I am not responding to all this medication. Mind you, at this time, no one knows my paraesophageal hernia exists because you cannot see it unless you are inside the body or it is at the size that it you can see it through an X-ray or a barium swallow. And so um, they forward me to a surgeon, and the surgeon is like, "Listen, you need a Nissen fundoplication." At the time I Googled it, there really wasn't much information. That it was just like, basically just ads for surgeons that do it. There wasn't like this is, I mean, 2015. Feel like, I mean, social media had been around for a long time, but it wasn't at the point it is now where information is so widely like available.
Yeah.
And
I don't
so
I don't even think Google is offering you the right spelling of words back then, so however you look that
right,
one up on Google,
yeah,
my hat's off to you.
no, if you
Did
on
you mean this?
and honestly, if you type in Nissen fundoplication and most uh computers, or if you text it, it will tell you it's incorrect
Oh,
because it
wow.
wants to type in Nissan, uh, which is such a marketing world we live in. But
Yeah.
Nissen funduplication. But
Jeez.
so yeah, the my surgeon's like, listen, mind you, I'm an infantry dude. I'm a door kicker. Like I ruck a lot. I'm physically fit. I'm like 195, really fit, good shape, and they're, like, "Yeah, let's do this. You'll be good to go. You'll be kicking doors back down in 2 months." And I was like, "Okay." So, do the first surgery. They don't tell you a lot of the issues that can happen from the surgery, and mind you, it's a military surgeon doing this too, so,
Mm,
uh, just some context. There is a lot of military doctors that joined for the right reason. They wanted to serve their country. But a fact of the matter is, what you would make as a military surgeon is like 1/20th of what you would make
uh,
as a civilian. And so there's a there's a lot of people that they didn't score as well, and they needed some option, and that was a way to pay off student loans even faster because the military will pay them off. And so
mhm.
that is a reality of stuff that you do deal with in the military. So anyways, get the surgery. They find the Nissen, or I'm sorry, they find the paraesophageal hernia in there, and they repair it, and wake up, and they tell you that you kind of have to learn how to eat and drink again, but you don't understand what that means until you experience this. And so for the first 2 weeks, you're supposed to be on a liquid diet only. You're not, so I probably lost, I didn't actually lose that much weight during that period. I think I only lost like 7 or 8, maybe 10 pounds. And which, I mean, still a lot, but I
Yeah.
I couldn't breathe. I was having severe difficulties breathing. And so I kept going to the surgeon every day. "Please give me a barium swallow." And for those of you who don't know what a barium swallow is, it's something you would never willingly request on your own. It's like an X-ray. You lay on a bed. Well, you stand up on the bed, and then the bed lays down. They take pictures both standing and laying down, and you drink this drink that, as best as I could describe it, would be a chalk milkshake. It is chalk, like your mouth is chalky. If you drop it on your pants or on your shoes, it will never come off.
Mhm.
So you drink that, and then you drink this like Pop Rocks mixture, and basically the X-rays alive. It's constantly showing your swallow, so you visually see the swallow.
Yeah.
And I finally, after a month, I convinced this lady, "Hey, please give me a barium swallow." And she's like, "Whatever." And so we do the barium swallow, and the doctor, as he's doing this things, the actual X-ray tech, he starts laughing. And I look over and I was like, "What is it?" And he's like, "Man, you look at the size of this hernia you have. How are you breathing right now?" And so this paraesophageal hernia had came back and actually completely grabbed my, like, lung and was crushing my lung. And so he calls the surgeon's like, "Oh my gosh, we need to perform an emergency upper endoscopy tomorrow." So next day, go in for the upper endoscopy. And, mind you, at this point, I've been, like, put under for several of these things before. Like, I'm used to anesthesia now.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot to put me under. And, I wake up at, like, 4 or 5 in the afternoon after getting back, because I don't really you're always groggy, you don't remember what they tell you. And so she calls me, she's like, "Hey, we need to perform surgery tomorrow, like emergency surgery." And so the reason I think the first surgery failed was that I had a coughing spell and I was super nauseous, so I was gagging.
Oh,
Um, and they think that I just retched it. That's another thing they don't tell you, is that with a Nissen fundoplication, you can never throw up again. And as great as that may sound to some people,
like,
it
ever?
is ever. Yeah, so I can't physically throw up.
Oh,
And so it is the world's worst thing. I mean, There's a lot of
Wow.
bad things, but this is pretty dang miserable. When I get the stomach bug, right to the hospital to get pumped because I can't throw up and I try to. And because I've got the stomach flu so many times, I that paraesophageal hernia is now back, but every doctor's afraid to touch it until it completely fails.
Yeah.
So ended up, went for the second surgery, and this is where the fun begins. They gave me, kids screaming in the background, of course. They gave me
Skilled dad, man.
yep, they gave me an experimental, anesthesia from, like, the '70s, and so it's, like, a
Uh-huh.
very rare you have to sign a bunch of paperwork. There's 3, anesthesiologists in the room. I've never seen so many people in a hospital room for a surgery as this moment, and they're like, "You need to tell what music do you wanna listen to? This is very important, and for when we give you this administer this." And I was like, "Give me some oldies, man. Give me some Beach Boys or something," and so they put that on, and the main anesthesiologist looks at me and goes, "Just so you know, this is gonna be very painful." And I'm like, "Man, I've been put under so many times, like, what are you talking about?" And
Like,
so
right as they turn on Beach Boys.
right, and so they hit me with the
Perfect.
drip, the normal drip to start, and they're hoping that I'll pass out to the drip. No, and I'm wide awake. They're like, "How you feeling?" I'm like, "I'm wide awake," and they're like, "Okay, this is what we thought." And mind you, like, I don't know if you've ever had surgery, but, like, if you have any type of surgery on your abdomen, you are fully strapped down, like, to a board because they don't want you to move and, like,
Right.
recut. So you're like you feel like a prisoner, like, you feel like you're in Dexter pretty much, you know?
Oof.
And,
Jeez.
so they're like, "This is gonna be painful." And man, I can describe this to the end of time, but it felt like I mean, it was just this hit in the face. I can't explain. It felt like I was falling for hours, and like the weight was just everything was crushing me. It truly was the most painful thing, like in a weird way. But anyways,
Mm.
wake up at this point, man, this is my second surgery in 2 months. I wake up and I'm like they're like, "Hey, the surgery went well." I'll lie. I think it's like August now. So I remember June, July were my first surgeries, and it's like August, end of August. I'm down to like 144 pounds from
Wow.
195 before my first one. Like this,
51-pound loss.
yeah. I look like I'm dying. Like I mean, realistically, I kind of was. My glucose was dropping to numbers in the teens numerous times a day. And for those who kind of don't know much about the glucose hypoglycemia thing, a lot of people confuse it with diabetes. Do monitor their hypoglycemia, but I am strictly hypoglycemic now. And so basically, my sugars, I don't have to worry about them skyrocketing, they drop. And so
Mhm.
below 70, the average male is gonna get really woozy, like lightheaded, kind of almost drunk feeling.
Mhm.
Below 50, you're at the point where you're burning brain cells. You're at a risk of a coma. You're at risk of seizure. Once you hit 30, you're really pushing those, like you're really risking seizure. You hit 0, you're dead. The lowest number I
Oof.
ever recorded was 11.
Holy.
Um, and they think that I may have been single digits when I had my seizure. And so I had a seizure in the middle of the night. And man, to this day question how I'm still here because my wife wasn't home and I was alone. And I always kept a gallon of sweet tea next to the bed at this point,
Mhm.
like and as an emergency thing and candy or something nearby.
Yep.
And basically this is months later. So I learned how to eat and deal with the esophageal spasms by mentally blocking those out. I woke up, that gallon was empty on the bed. My all the candy was gone. So at some point, which I have no recollection of during that seizure, I woke up and just started.
Downed it.
Yeah, I went to the hospital next day. They did their little test and were like, "Yeah, you had a seizure." Basically, long story short, what we found out was that the surgeon cut my vagus nerve, and so your vagus nerve kind of runs from your brain down, controls your entire digestive, your entire endocrine system,
Man.
and so she cut it, and so the vagus nerve on me's sick, man. It's like a little thinner than a pencil, and she clean cut it. So when she cut that, it paralyzed my stomach, which caused gastroparesis. So gastroparesis just is the technical term for stomach paralysis. That caused the severe hypoglycemia, as well as permanent nausea and permanent stomach pain. So I deal with that on a daily basis since
Eh,
2015.
see, there's, like, no way. that I would have been able to tell any of this. Like, when we first talked, like,
Yeah.
all that, even the time we spent beforehand, and I know you're gonna get to kind of that, the choice that you had to make,
Yeah, yeah.
which is huge, but that's a
If
lot
I
of stuff, bro.
if I could give if I was to give one word of advice to just people in general in life, and I'm not saying I was some like this incredibly judgmental person before all of this, but I know a lot of people will see people park in handicap parking spaces and then get out and walk in. And everyone's like, man, what is this person doing? Pathetic. They're not handicapped. I tell you, man, I get a whole different appreciation now.
Mhm,
Uh, Invisible illnesses are real. And, whether it's, mental or, physical, I've met a lot of people now with, and mind you, let, let's not forget, and I hate even talking about this, but I was in Afghanistan. I lost my roommate. My platoon has blown up a few times. You see things that, the normal person shouldn't see.
mhm,
And so, mind you, I'd already been through that. And so my stomach issues were so bad that I almost forgot about that until I'd ended up talking to a therapist years later, and they were like, you have it, this is an infantry mindset. Infantry guys are like, PTSD doesn't exist. It's fake. I don't care what they say. And so I was that way. And,
mhm,
as a therapist, like, you got PTSD for like numerous things. And they're like, you have it severely for your surgeries. And then you have it also for Afghanistan, whether you realize it or not. And I'm like, no, I don't, doc. I'm not
mhm.
weak. Um, but man, yeah, don't judge a book by its cover because you don't know what that person's going through. And literally, there's been maybe one day in coming up on 60 years that I haven't been nauseous and had stomach pain all day. Ended up going to a bunch of specialists, Mayo Clinic surgeon, and this and that, and ended up telling me my option was they'd go in and take everything she did down. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, had that third surgery. When he went in, he realized he couldn't undo what she did.
Wait, you I remember you told me this, like, you've had all this go down,
Yep.
and if there's a key point, I wanna make sure we don't skip over, but you had all this go down, and you got to a point, essentially where they told you, "You're just basically gonna be chilling here and not get up and do anything, and you're just be laying in bed
Yep.
for the rest of your
Yeah.
life." And
Yeah.
your oldest is how old at this point?
At this point, my
5?
oldest is 5. Yep. And so at this point, we had 3 kids. So he's 5, maybe going on right about around 6. Actually, I believe he was 6. Yes, he just turned 6. Um, Savannah was 2.5, and Carson is 4 months old. And so, mind you, I am useless. I can't do anything. I literally live in my bed. The Army at this point, like, now knows they gotta medically retire me, and I don't show up to any for like, I literally didn't show up to anything. I don't remember any half of that year, but, um, they told me I would need a feeding tube. I'd never be able to work. I'd never be able to go to school. Uh, my memory would be gone forever. I wouldn't remember simple things like birthdays and names, and basically said like, "Man, you are about to become a vegetable. You don't have a future."
Mm,
And so I kind of thought that. I wrote up a will and got it all, certified and official. And I kind of just lived in the shower. The shower water is kind of the only thing that kind of helped my nausea, like
mm,
it hitting me. And so that was what I was expecting my life to be like. And mind you, every single day while all this is going on, like from the start, my daughter, we lived right next to a park. Can we go to the park? Can we go to the park, Dad? Can we go to the park, Dad? And every day I was like, no, I can't. Can't bring you. I'm sorry. My wife is like, no, sweetie, he can't bring you. And one day she didn't ask me. And at this point in my head, I'm like, wow, I'm a piece of crap. And, yeah, I know that's not the case. I've had these
Yeah.
issues, but that's what I took it as. I was like, "Man, I survived Afghanistan,
Mm.
and my some surgeon's gonna ruin the rest of my life, like, or this bottle of water in Afghanistan starts all this. What a joke!" And
Uh,
so I was like, "I got to do something." So I walked up to my wife and I was like, "Babe, I'm going fly fishing." And she's like, "No, you're not." And I was like, "Yes, I am." She's like, "You can't, and you know this." And I was like, "I need to try because I can't show my kids." And so I guess this would be a good thing to note. I was like, "Man, I can't show my kids that I just kind of gave up." And
mm,
obviously everyone's medical conditions are different, but man, honestly, I think if I would've just let myself lay in bed, I guarantee you I wouldn't be sitting here right now. I bet you I would've died, because my health just would've kept getting worse.
mhm.
And, I basically mentally forced myself not to be that to let that happen. And so I went fly fishing a bunch with a bunch of buddies, and, every time I'd pass out in the river. I'd fall over. I'd have a hypoglycemic episode, and I'd get back and I'd be, "Why'd I do this?" Miserable. My wife would be like, "Babe, I told you, and you can't be doing this." And slowly but surely, I started noticing that like my glucose wasn't dropping as much, And
Mhm.
when I was out fishing, and I was like, "Man, what's going on?" So I went to a specialist, endocrinologist, and kinda was like, "Man, let's can we do some blood work? Can we do some tests? Why is this kinda changing?" And, long story short, I did a bunch of tests for a few days, and they tested me when I was talking about the army life and the surgeries, and then they tested me when I was talking about fly fishing, and what they saw was that my glucose levels, were, like, balanced out when I was talking about things I was passionate about, anything in the outdoors. And basically, what they realized of some type of medical miracle that my adrenaline and, what's the other word I'm looking for here? My,
Serotonin?
yeah, like endorphins,
Yeah, endorphins.
were were basically turning into what my body needed to get me through this. And, like, it's so crazy. I could go fishing, be out, my sugar's not drop, and that's not the case every time. I still will go out and, I'll just die on the mountain, basically, it feels like. But
When we go out together, I'll have,
cool.
like, some Sour
Cookie
Patch
icing,
Kids.
always keep that, yeah.
Yes, cookie
I
icing.
go out with a lot of stuff, so I carry glucose, and then I also carry just extra, like, just cookie icing packets because they are, like, quick, fast, in the mouth absorption.
Yeah.
Um, but, you know, my wife and I had had the conversation, like, say I go out and I'm in this mountain and I die. I go out and I die on this mountain. What does that tell the kids? And we both agreed that, like, that tells the kids that I didn't let the stupid disease and the stupid mistake the surgeon made control my life. And even if I did unfortunately pass away from all of this, I didn't let that beat me. And I showed them that they can go out. And if something ever happened in their life that was like this, they don't have to let that disease control their life. And man, I'm not saying I've done a lot of amazing things since then, which I have, but uh, if it wasn't for my daughter asking me that question
Mm.
or not asking me that question that day, I probably wouldn't be where I'm sitting right now. I've traveled all over the country, dozens of times. I've gone up to Alaska numerous times to fly fish. I've filmed all these things, and solely because I told myself that I wouldn't let this disease control my life. And granted, doctors still tell me I'm just a ticking time bomb. And uh, I a few years ago with my nonprofit, everyone thought I was taking a nap on a rock. I had actually
Uh-huh.
passed out from my hypoglycemia
Oh,
dropped really
jeez.
low, and I was woken up by what are those things, man, that scream at you?
That scream
Like a
at you?
groundhog.
Mir
The ones that literally, like, stand
Prairie
up and, like,
dogs.
"Meow." Yeah, a
Yeah, yeah.
prairie dog. I had one right behind me on the rock screaming in my ear, and I thought it was a lady. I thought I was, like, dreaming, and my buddy comes I stand up and I'm like this, and I look, there's candy wrappers all around me, and I fall over, my buddy runs up, he's like, "You alright, dude? We thought you were sleeping." And I was like, "Man." No, I passed out. So it still happens. And so I gotta be careful. I always carry stuff with me.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I found this healing power in the outdoors, and it was like my goal. I need to tell everyone about this. So I went to all these like support groups for gastroparesis and just for invisible illnesses. I was like, guys, you got to get outside. And I actually had a lot of negative feedback. A lot of
Mm,
people were like, just because you can do it doesn't mean others can. I kid you not, my wife to this day will still bring this up every now and again. I posted a picture with a thumbs up once, laying in bed, and they kicked me out of the group because I was too positive, and not everyone could be positive. No matter what the situation you are in, you can be positive. There
okay.
is a way to be positive no matter what. And I was kicked out of this group. And at that moment, I was like, I need to share this. I need to share the outdoors and the healing power they have with everybody.
Mm,
And there's actually books and basically proven science now that the outdoors truly have a actual healing power. Like basically, this is where humans came from. This is where we kind of belong. Um,
mm,
and so I got involved with a nonprofit called the Iron Freedom Foundation, and, I got involved with them on their second trip, and we outfit and take combat veterans and first responders out on outdoor expeditions between 3 to 7 days long, and kinda where we separate ourselves from a lot of other nonprofits is, you know and this is, I'm not speaking ill on any nonprofit, anyone who's helping people out, I'm super stoked for, but what our founder found was that there was guys going on these other nonprofit trips and they teach them how to fish. They go out and fish for a few days, but then at the end, they don't have the tools to do it themselves, and maybe they're not in the financial situation to buy it, or a lot of these dudes are too proud to ask,
mm,
"Wait, what do I buy?" And so they founded this nonprofit, and it's basically we give the guys all the gear they need to partake in our program and then keep it. And so
wow.
our fly fishing trips, literally, you get everything you need to partake in this. You get the tent, you get all of the fly rods, the flies, the jackets. Literally, we outfit you head to toe, and then we do trips in Texas on mostly the Devil's River, which flows into the Rio, right on the border. Beautiful, beautiful part of the country. But
Mm,
um, it's been awesome, and I've been able to share so many stories as a filmmaker, and
mhm,
every trip, my body hates it because 'cause I'm, like, carrying all this camera gear, and my body's like, "Dude, you gotta stop." But
yeah,
the I mean, I've some of these films, Finding Peace is one of them, Weightless is another one, and, my very first film I did, I've had people message me on social media, say, "I just watched your film." Weightless was one of the biggest ones, actually. "I just watched your film, Weightless, and I kid you not, I was gonna kill myself an hour ago, and, I
mm,
watched your film, and I decided not to, and I went and hiked the mountain, and the guy in your video was right." And, so, I mean,
that's awesome. Uh,
that's, you know
Can I ask you a question?
Yes,
Well,
sir.
I guess a second question because I just did, but it sounds like your daughter was the piece.
Yep,
Yours your daughter, right?
yep,
That when she stopped asking you to come, you're like, "Screw this."
yeah,
And that was kind of the booster, and you're still fighting stuff every day.
oh, yeah.
Um, I mean, we're all fighting different things. You got a variety of things going on.
Mhm.
What's the thing that's because this has been how long in the making now?
I mean,
6 years?
technically, if you wanna the issues started in 2011 in Afghanistan,
So
but
10.
the real pain and the misery and the actual diagnosed problem started in 2015, so June of 2015, so, I mean, we're coming up on
About
7 years
7 years.
in
So,
next summer. Oh,
what's the thing that keeps, you pushing through?
man, it is the kids, 100%, and it's my Oh, and I've a few people, some family members actually have questioned my wife, like, "Why do you let him go on these trips?" And all he does is go and have fun, and he's not bringing the family. And she's like, "What you don't understand," and she'll explain this to people. What you don't understand is that's literally his medicine. That's giving him more life to come spend more time with me and with his kids. And at the end of the day, my biggest goal is the exact statement that I said. what I felt when my daughter stopped asking me. My biggest goal is to show my kids that I didn't let a disease and these issues control my life to the point where I couldn't do the things that I wanted to do in my future, and that no matter what your situation is, that you can find a means to go do something. And I've seen that firsthand. I've helped tell the stories of that firsthand. I just got back from a hunt in Washington a few months ago where Aaron Boyle, who's an infantry vet in the Army, hit an IED, and he's a double amputee, lost both his right arm and his right leg. And we brought this guy on a hunt. And mind you, he's right eye dominant, right handed shooter. We had to teach this guy to shoot left-handed, to shoot with his left eye, harvested a mule deer.
Wow.
Day 1 of opening season, he never thought he'd be able to hunt, never thought he'd be able to shoot a firearm again. He's got, I think Aaron, I'm sorry if you're listening. I think Aaron has 3 kids, maybe 4, I think 3, and a wife. And look at him. He's out there doing the same thing.
Good job, Aaron.
He's showing his kids like, "Man, I'm not letting this missing limbs, control my life." And that's kinda ensuring that my kids know that I never gave up. And it's tough because my kids are so young. And Grayson, 2.5 years old, he never experienced, and he wasn't there for my worst. My youngest middle, Carson, doesn't remember that. It's really just Savannah and Logan
Mhm.
who kinda remember that period, and they're the only ones that truly understand. Carson knows I have issues. There's plenty of times where we're supposed to go somewhere or go out to eat, and I'm like, "I can't." Uh, you know, so don't get me wrong, there's still times when I say I can't.
Sure, sure.
But for, I travel all over the country now with work, things that I literally was told I'd never be able to work again. And now continuing to provide for my family. And I told you know, told all the doctors, yeah, that ain't gonna be me. That ain't gonna be me. I'm gonna prove you wrong. And yeah, I mean, it's been
That's killer,
tough.
man.
There's definitely a lot of struggles, and life's not perfect. Which it's not for anybody. But it, the fact I'm able to that one day my kids, when I die at whatever age that is, whether it's from this or I die of old age, my kids will say that guy, my dad, he didn't let some disease control him. He didn't live on a hospital bed with a feeding tube and a permanent IV like they told him he would. That's what they told me. Permanent IV, whatever the hookup is that they had to change out
Yeah.
every 8 days or whatever. But that was life. Feeding tube was life. A hospital bed was life. In care support was life. No.
You you're showing them not to give up in the face of adversity, and
Mhm.
especially your 11, 8, and 6-year-old probably
Yeah.
gets it to a degree. My son's picking up on stuff all the time. I'm like, "Well, you weren't supposed to see that."
Yeah.
But, you're also using so you made that choice, and like you said, there's a lot of different situations, right?
Mhm.
Whatever people's personal situation is, that they're facing, but, um, you're pushing through, and then you're also using that time and using this experience to connect with other people that are having potentially similar experiences
Yeah.
or illnesses or things they're facing to help equip them, and better them. If we could have a little bit more of that, worry less about the handicap spot and more about putting a helping hand out there,
Oh, yeah.
then we're gonna see some ripple effects, and we can do that. And that's what I love just from the story that you had shared before, and what you're showing, and when you told me, like, your daughter, when she said that, uh, that's powerful, man,
Yeah.
and for those that have faced similar things or are facing similar things, um, I hope that they find some inspiration in what they can do if they find themselves in a low spot,
Yeah.
and even if it's not as drastic, we all get low spots, but it helps provide some perspective.
No, for sure. And and there's no perfect dad out there. For me especially, and I find myself guilty of this a lot. Hypoglycemia is a known side effect of that is like a known main side effect is like severe anger aggression. And
Mhm.
so when my sugars drop, I'm very snappy and I'll scream at the kids and it's not me, it's my body in a panic mode because I'm literally going into a fight or flight.
Yeah.
Uh, but there's plenty of times where I'm tired, man. They call people with invisible illnesses spoonies. And basically you have 12 spoons of energy a day. How are you going to use it?
Mm.
I'm a few million in the hole. And I'll never catch up on that ever. There's hasn't been a day in 6 years I've woke up were
Fully jazzed.
fresh. Yeah, and so, man, I get angry a lot, and something I'm very guilty of is, say my youngest throws some soup on the ground or mashed potatoes, and I'll snap at him and yell at him or something like that, just out of instinct or whatever you call it. Man, I think of and this is like I actually see TikTok videos of this now, and people making these videos where it shows them, like, being really aggressive to their kid, and then it goes into, like, this realization, like, it shows, like, they film one of their older kids, and it looks like him, like, that's how the older kid that's how your kid could remember you, and for me and this is different, maybe different, but look at life like this, for me, especially when I travel a lot, and this is some people say this is really dark, but every time I take a trip, I gotta rename this thing, but I'm always like, "All right, I gotta take this death photo." And, every time I go on a work trip or a long trip, I take a picture with my entire family, all of them, and I send it to my wife, and I send it to my oldest because he has a phone now, which is crazy. I didn't have a phone until I was, like, 17, but whatever. Um, and I don't know why I take that picture, but I do. Um, but
Call
that's kinda
wait, so why do you call it the death photo?
I like, a part of me always thinks that, like, I wake up a lot of days and I'm like, "Wow, surprised." So kinda surprised to be here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's so, it's kinda like that's kind of the mentality. It's like, I don't know if I'm gonna come back from one of these work trips. A lot of times I'm in not the friendliest landscape environments for work, and even though I bring all my supplies, there's a chance, I was in Moab. That's a 2-hour, drive for somebody to come find me if they have to fly in if something had happened or something like that,
Yeah.
but kinda connecting that back to the, yelling at your kids or stuff like that, and, there's a time and a place for it, but
I see what you're
man
saying. So
man,
they remember that face.
what if I mean, say tonight, right? My pizza don't show up, cranky, I go downstairs, I grab something to eat, and then I go my kid's still awake, and they spilled something on the floor, and I just yell at them. Right? They go to bed. The last thing they remember is that I yelled at them. What happens if I don't wake up tomorrow morning? That is my biggest fear, is that I will snap at one of my kids for something stupid that realistically and I literally, I struggle with this,
Yeah.
I'm not perfect, and if you if you are a perfect dad out there, man, pause to you, but I think all of us, have snapped at our kids, but, like, there's a learning experience where you could say, "Hey, buddy, you shouldn't do that," like, there's other ways to go about it than like, you shouldn't if you go, like, run over towards your kid and your kid goes like this, like, pulls back,
Yeah.
ah, man, that's not good. That's, like, a big thing for me is my fear of my kids will remember me as like, "Man, he's not the guy that didn't let that disease control him. He's the guy that yelled at me because I threw spaghetti on the wall,
Right.
and I don't want that."
Yeah. So that photo is kinda like, let this be the last thing you remember.
Yeah.
It should and I'll tell you what, man, you're not alone in any of that, and hypoglycemia is not necessarily the excuse for all of us. Like
No, no.
you go back and listen to the episode with Jake Smith, who talks about some of that, and it resonates big time when talking about the core feelings and anger and rage.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a tipping point because there's different things that set us off. But I can tell you from all the conversations I've been having over the last few months, you're not alone. But it's a huge reminder for kids, for wife, because
Yeah.
we all have different things that you just don't know. You never guaranteed what the next minute's gonna be. So what I like about that is personally, selfishly here, it's a good reminder of what's the last thing my wife's gonna remember about me that I said, or the face I made before I go to sleep, and what was the last thing I said to my kids.
No,
So that's good.
it's crazy, man. The world, just life is insanely delicate, and I mean, like, man, you don't know how somebody's feeling. You don't know. Literally, you go get gas and somebody's having a bad day. So you never. Life is short and life is delicate, man. Treat the ones around you with love, and there's obviously going to be times where you're angry, but and I'm definitely the worst with love language with my wife because we have polarizing opposites, but reminding the ones that you love them, and that I think that's like so important because you don't know what's next. You don't, you're not guaranteed another second.
That's it, man. That's it. So how are we gonna use it? How are we gonna
Yeah.
use what we do have? And I love some of the ways that you're using yours. And you know, you keep doing all the cool stuff and taking good videos and
Trying.
sharing with people. Hey, you talked about it's Iron Freedom Foundation, right?
Yep. Ironfreedom.org. And then if you wanted to look us up on social, it's the Iron Freedom Foundation on Instagram and Facebook. It's also on LinkedIn. Um, And then I've just started with another nonprofit as well called Four Season Fighters. We're gonna do some joint stuff together. They're on the hunting side, so they're same kind of find them on social. But yeah,
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, I'll post some of those so you can go take a look in the links below, or whether you're watching, listening, whatever it might be. How about you? I mean, you've got some awesome stuff and people can find you. I know we talked about
yep.
CameronCush.com. How about if people want to check you out on the socials?
Instagram, same
Yep.
thing. Cameron Cush. So
Easy.
that's the main Instagram page for me. And if you want to Facebook stalk me and send me a friend request, I'm fine with that too. Cameron Cushman. So it'll pop up. I think it's a picture of me with a big beard, which I don't have right now. Kind of don't.
Yeah. You threw me off a little bit.
It's coming
Part
back.
2 will be the mustache there.
The mustache is coming.
It is. It's going strong.
It's crazy. This is only like 2 weeks worth of growth. And I got my
Just rub it in, bro.
oh,
I
I'm
mean,
sorry,
yeah,
man.
that's okay. It's alright.
Uh,
You got this baby face. I got called out twice this week for,
oh,
the
no.
baby face. But, hey, man, let me just say this. I'm proud of you for stepping up and doing what you're doing, for showing up to your kids, even in the face of this, and showing up to other men. And that's you're doing some really good things. And, with all the stuff that you got going on, taking some time to sit down with me and spending this much time, I want to say thank you for that too. So I'm proud of you. Number one. Number two, thank you
Oh,
for
man,
getting on here with me.
I appreciate it, and, man, what you're doing is just as important. You're sharing stories of different dads, and I guarantee everyone can take away something from every single one of your podcasts. So, you know, I think everyone out there has something for them to give back in a way. And, I kind of have found, the current one for me is through visuals and through my nonprofits. And what you kind of got going on right now is this podcast, Zach. So man, I thank you for having me on and letting me share my story. If I can help if I can help somebody just by sharing my story and someone's like, wow, man, I never looked at it that way, then I'm stoked.
That's it, man. You mentioned something earlier, and we can close with this, but to that point, every time I've talked to almost every time, talked to somebody about the podcast and have said, "Hey, would you be interested in being on at some point?" And the response is, "Ah, I've got nothing to share. I don't have a story to tell." And for anybody listening, I'll tell you this, and it's kind of direct. That's much crap. Everybody's got something in your story that we can take away from others. And by holding that back, we're missing out. Others are missing out
Yeah.
on learning and connecting and finding, even if it's just a tiny tidbit. So there is no perfect dad that I've met. And that's the point of this. We're all looking to be better, and we're looking to do better and be the skilled dads by learning from other people and learning the things we can do and apply to our own life. So, um, yeah, again, man, I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to maybe a part deux
Maybe. Maybe we'll
But
talk about the snip snip on that next one.
oh, we'll get a forum. We'll get
All
a
right.
forum. So
Make a poll.
yeah. All right. Thanks, Cameron. I appreciate it, man.
Hey, Zach, really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Hey guys, you've made to this point. Uh, Cameron's got an epic story. There's a lot that he's faced, and what I love is that he's taken that choice and pushed through and found perseverance and that motivation of his daughter and his family, and to then go and take that and go and help other people with his story, with his talents, with his skills, with what he's doing. And there's something probably that you've got that you can reflect on to say, hey, what am I facing? That then I can push through and use my talents, my skills. Again, we'll post everything about Cameron. I suggest you go take a look at his website, CameronCush.com. You can follow him and see some beautiful art that he's putting out and the stories that he's telling. You can go check out Iron Freedom Foundation and what they're doing there to help veterans. But we appreciate you joining in and listening to this podcast. If you want to learn more, you can go to theskilleddad.com. You can follow us on Instagram as well at Skilled Dad. But most importantly, we hope that you take something from Cameron's story in this conversation that you can apply to your life on your journey to becoming the skilled dad. We'd love for you to subscribe, share this with someone that you think might be impacted in a positive way. And we look forward to having you join us on the next conversation.